So we have hit 1:30, so that was perfect timing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here at the forum. The topic for today is understanding your real estate taxes and school funding. And the purpose of the forum is to have the audience drive the questions. And what we will be doing is having the speakers to introduce themselves so that the audience knows the role that the panel plays in addressing answers to your questions. The role that Matt and I play is to make sure that the discussion stays on topic. So this topic truly is about understanding how your real estate is being taxed in relationship to school funding. So if you want to take it in another direction, what I'm going to do is respectfully interrupt and remind the audience that the topic is understanding your real estate taxes as it relates to school funding. So, and actually this topic was an outcome of a previous forum, which was creating a fix. And we had a little bit of a revolt in the audience saying they wanted to talk about school funding. And in order to stay on the topic, I pledged that we would do a forum specifically on that topic. And that's why we're here today. So at this time, what I would like to do is thank our panelists, all of you, for making time to be here so that we can have an informed citizenry and understanding how their real estate taxes work. And so each of the panels, they're sharing a microphone. So we've got 3 guests on this side and 3 on the other. And so if you would do me the favor of sharing the mic, but Rick Jeffrey, our Erie County Auditor, would you do me the favor of introducing yourself and explain briefly the role of the County Auditor's Office?
Give us the whole bio. No, you don't want to do that. My name is Rick Jeffrey, and I am really tickled that I was laughing because people don't know how to spell my last name. And I thought we had it fixed, but we missed an E on this one, but it's closer than IES. There is no IES on the end of my name. It's just REY, period. My role in this function really, it started about 4 years ago when I was targeted to be one of the members of the leadership team of the State Auditors Association. And we've been working really hard with the legislature. And if you wasn't sitting here, I'd be saying the same thing, that I really applaud, and the Auditors Association as a collective group really applaud the state legislature. Some people may be frustrated over the length of time it took to get some meaningful legislation, some meaningful fixes to the property tax issues. But in my mind, the reason why it's difficult to get things change is it should be difficult. It shouldn't be just a simple matter of snapping your fingers and it's changed. You need to do the proper vetting. You need to go through it. We have talked, and I think we've met ad nauseum with different things, trying to explain the nuances of school funding and all of the things that property taxes pay for. And so that you don't want to just make it a quick statement and a quick change and then sit there, fix it like we do with dog tags. And that's an inside joke. I think EJ might appreciate that one, but we've been fixing dog tag license or the legislation for 10 years and still not fixed. So I just want to, I shared with you, I don't want to insult your intelligence by reading it to you, but I gave each of you a copy of what the Auditors Association sent to the governor. And I'll share with DJ. One of the things that's a little bit concerning to me is that this legislation was passed on the 19th.
Rick, can I respectfully interrupt? I'd like to do an introduction.
I'm sorry.
And then we'll get back to
you have it in front of you and read that.
Okay. Our next guest, our Ohio representatives, DJ Swearingen.
Thanks, Sue. And I'm DJ Swearingen. I'm your representative to Columbus. And all of Ottawa, all of Erie, and especially parts of Huron County. And I just want to say thank you to Serving Our Seniors for hosting all of these forums. I think this is the third forum that has been produced. And I think it's great that we have these, and you're all able to come here and address your government officials and see what's going on in Columbus and also locally. So I just really want to take a moment and thank all of you for coming down and making sure that your voices are heard, asking questions and getting answers. I think that's crucially important in our democracy, and it's healthy for our state, healthy for our local government and all of our elected officials. Just to note on Rick Jeffrey, we were playing categories over Thanksgiving, and one of the categories was a cool guy, and my daughter put down, it starts with R, and my daughter put down Rick Jeffrey. And I said, well, why'd you do that one? And she said, he's got that cool car that he always has. So Rick's, I thank Rick for his insight, and Caleb and Jen Widmer over at Ottawa County and the commissioners and all the local elected officials who, and you guys as well, that have made it very clear that we have an issue with property taxes that needed to be addressed. And I've enjoyed the process. I've enjoyed working with all of it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Caleb Stidham. I'm the Erie County Treasurer. I also want to thank Sue. In addition to these forums, we did about a dozen how to calculate your real estate tax presentations back in the spring. And, we thought a real need and an importance to do that because the whole system of real estate taxes is built on informed choice, right? It's we get to choose to vote or not vote for the levies that fund our local governments or local services in our school districts. And as we talk about school funding, we talk about what the state should be funding, what the local governments should be funding, the local systems. It really comes down to choice. And we in this community want to make the decisions about what is being taught in our schools and how our schools work, or we want to send it to Columbus. I think that's a fundamental choice. But the challenge with our real estate tax system is that it's not easy to understand. It's not clear. And so when you make it difficult to understand, you move informed choice from the electorate. There's been so much that's happened over the course of the last 5 or 6 years where taxes are going up, but we didn't vote on it, or we didn't get a say on it. And so I like to applaud the General Assembly for spending so much of this year. It's been a frustrating process because everybody's had to get smarter to learn to understand it. And I applaud the pieces of legislation that is on the handout that Rick gave to all of you. And we'll talk about it. But my responsibility stays the question is really collect and analysis. Once the rates are calculated in Columbus and once the values are sent by the county auditor, I'm responsible for sending out the bills and collecting it. So I get to fund feedback on the back end of the system that Columbus creates and that the auditor implements. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And following Caleb is Dennis Spiratori from Sandusky School System Superintendent. Dennis, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. A little bit concerned you mentioned the word revolt, and we're sitting up here.
It was a kind revolt.
And again, thank you all for being here today. Dennis Spiratori. I'm in my 34th year of public education. I too am a senior citizen. I do pay taxes in Erie County as well. So I sit in both seats here. I do applaud you all for coming out and applaud you, Stu, for being here. And applaud our state legislators for the opportunity to be here. And a chance for us and my colleagues here, Mr. Curtin, Dr. Tappan, to explain to you or answer questions how we utilize funds, right? How do we spend your local tax dollars? How, from our perspective, the state is, again, making it more difficult for us. And we can argue that yes or no if it's more positive or negative. But again, information, being informed is a great thing. So I appreciate you all being here today. We look forward to good, healthy, robust discussion. All right, and I'm James Tappan, the superintendent of Geraldton Schools. This is my 4th year in that position, serving the school district. I haven't come from previous districts in Lorraine and Calhoun County. And so, again, thanks to Sue for this on. And then if you met me early fall, so I was able to lock in the date, and I look forward to the conversation we're going to have today, sharing experiences, knowledge, and having a better understanding of what we lead.
And Kurt, I'm the superintendent of Margaret Local Schools. Thank you for having us. I think it's important that we always have dialogue and talk about situations that we face. CEOs of running school districts and how we're trying to educate our children and be very responsive to our taxpayers. We're all taxpayers in the districts that we live in, the three of us. And we want to have that dialogue and discussion. I think all that's healthy. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So a forum is driven by the audience. So we want to have you get your questions answered. And so what I'd like to do is begin with the audience and ask, do you have any questions for our panelists? And if anyone is reluctant to speak out in public, if you just want to raise your hand and you can tell Matt the question you'd like to ask, or you can tell me and we're happy to ask it for you. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to begin the conversation?
Sure. Diana Dudash, Urban Heights. A lot of this legislation looks like it is aimed at capping the growth of these real property taxes. What are you doing to roll them back?
Very good. Anyone like to take that? I guess that would be you, TJ.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Some of the bills that we passed have already been implemented. One of them was the homestead piggyback, the expanded owner occupancy credit, and the new bill. I know Erie County, the Budget Commission has taken steps to, like the commissioners do, to not collect taxes that have been appropriated. I think that's important to remember that, some of the local officials do have the authority to forego collecting increases that result from increased values and increased property taxes. So I've seen that in Erie County. I think the commissioners in Ottawa and Erie both voted again to forego collected fair millage. The expanded owner occupancy credit should extend a reduction to you. The homestead piggybacks that Erie County did pick up and implement should result in decreased taxes. And I'd like Rick or Kate, if you want to follow up on what's kind of says.
So can I ask one question to that, just to clarify? So there's two things that are responsible for the increase in tax, and correct me if I'm wrong. One is that the state of Ohio tells the county auditor what the real estate value is to be. Am I correct about that? Okay. And so is there any, and I got to print your flyer. So
But I was going to go to that because one of the changes that they made is called flip the script. So starting with our next cycle, which I'm announcing today for the first time, I believe ours will be, it was supposed to be in 27. They have moved it back to 28. The tax commissioner decided that there's too many people with this coming cycle, which 41 out of the 88 counties that are in the current cycle for next year.
Coming cycle of what?
Revaluing property.
Yeah, so we're back to revaluing again.
So we, instead of doing it ahead and doing it in 26, we're moving it back instead of 27, we're going to 28. Everybody's going to go back a year the way it sounds. But that's going to happen.
So it'll be sometimes 3 years, it'll be 4,
It'll be 4 years of one time.
And so what's the next re-evaluation of the?
Ours will be in 28, the way it was written this morning. And the biggest change was made is that I will dictate to the state what values that we're going to use and not the reverse. But there is one thing that's sitting in that bill that we're not sure how it's going to play out, is that if they don't like the numbers that I give them, they have the ability to appeal to the Board of Tax Appeals. And if you know anything about the Board of Tax Appeals, I think Martha can tell you it was 3 years. Yeah. When the case gets down there, you don't know when they're going to get to it. So if they appeal my values, what's going to happen? You're going to have mayhem if they don't act on it quickly.
Okay, so
That's your concern.
thank you. So to answer her question somewhat, is it appears there may be a rollback in when the reevaluation takes place in 2028. That's a possibility.
and that legislation has been passed and approved. Okay.
Yes.
And is there other legislation that's being considered that could be approved?
The board that are before you, and there's a fifth one, are sitting. We're not sure because we were told, and I just confirmed with you that the number, those bills passed on the 19th of November. And right now they're still sitting somewhere in the House. They have not been legally governed. You check the clerk center because it wasn't on the governor's desk as of.
So that they haven't reached final approval.
Right. And it takes 10, he's got 10 days once he gets them. Sign or to veto it.
Is that your what you
Somewhat. Yeah, and I think to summarize, I think based off the expanded owner occupancy credit, the homestead exemption, the foregoing of collections, I think can all contribute to immediate relief. Going forward, these bills that put caps on unvoted increases, it allows the auditor to have a say, and ends the practice of the state of Ohio dictating to the local auditors when the values have to be, which usually results in increased taxes. I get it with it.
So just to add to the immediate impact of what the General Assembly was doing in the budget, which was passed and signed by the governor, they gave the ability for counties, as DJ's talking about, to expand the owner occupancy homestead rate, basically double it. And so Erie County was one of only 2 or 3 counties in the state to take advantage of it. Both. And total did one and the other, but there was only 2 or 3 that did both. So you get a 2.5% reduction if you own your home and live in it. That doubles to 5. And then if you're on the homestead exemption, you're over the age of 65 to meet the income qualifier, you get a doubling of that credit, which is pretty substantial for the population of people that are on homestead. So applaud the General Assembly for passing that. The other thing to DJ's point about the County Budget Commission, House Bill 309 clarifies this. But if a local government or taxing entity is sitting on excess money and has no plan to spend that money, the Budget Commission goes in and can suspend millage for a period of time to lower that. And so we've taken that action in these cases. We've had entities usually cooperate with us, work with us to do that.
they're happy to.
Well, they're willing to in some instances, but that reduces the tax burden because collectively your local government's tax base have hundreds and millions of dollars that they're sitting on it. Sometimes there's an intentional plan for those resources, sometimes there's not. And so that's our role to really oversee that.
So since we talked about the rolling back and the owner occupancy credit being doubled, how does that affect school funding? Because again, I'm trying to make sure we stay on topic because we really want to understand how schools get funded as it relates to our real estate sector.
So the original owner occupancy credit that's existed for a long time, the state of Ohio reimbursed us for that credit. With the expansion of the owner occupancy homestead, all the taxing entities lose that revenue. And so collectively it's went up to number $84 million.
75% of that expanded. 75% of that expanded tax relief is being funded by your local schools. It's coming directly from them.
Out of their budget.
Yes.
Okay, so with that being said, to the superintendents, would you like to say anything so we can understand the dynamics of our real estate taxes and how it relates to school funding with the owner occupancy tax credit being doubled?
Sure. Thank you, Sue. It has the potential to be upwards of close to almost $5 billion direct impact to Sandusky City Schools, depending on the number of owner occupancy who would take advantage of that tax credit. So, but it would be a substantial hit to us for services, et cetera. So I hope as we progress through this, I'll have an opportunity to share how we utilize our tax dollars locally and state dollars and help out me now. Thank you. Yeah, I would first start with each of us represent different school districts and each of us have our own story, right? So Sandusky's needs and their funding and their story is different than Huron's, it's different than Red's. So I'm saying with Huron, specifically with the piggyback that the district has, we were not totally averse to it, right? Because my board is sensitive to the taxes that we collect in Huron. And we're also sensitive to the fixed income families, the households that, see the property values going up because they have the benefit of living on the lake. But until you sell that property, there's no direct benefit in your pocket. So prior to the work that the commissioners did, our board and our finance committee were talking about
hey, because of factors like the 20 mil floor that generated an additional revenue for us, do we need to consider not collecting a portion of some property tax? And we talked about that. And then we heard about the work of the commissioners, and we looked at that. Ultimately, the numbers from the treasurer's office as far as the deduction of collections from Huron, about $420,000 in a calendar year. And the one fixed sum levy that we were talking about now collecting also generally equates to about $400,000 a year. So with the capacity to piggyback, those conversations of not collecting that fixed sum levy have ceased, because ultimately that savings that we were seeing if our budget could withstand have happened, and for our productive, it happened for the right population of people. So in Huron, again, unique to Huron, we have a lot of property owners who use them as investment properties. So short-term rentals, long-term rentals, and summer homes, second homes. You know, they live in Columbus area, the Cleveland area, and they have a second home. We feel those individuals that have those properties continue to pay the full tax. Those that are on fixed incomes, households that have lived in them for 30 or 40 years, and they're not realizing in their pocket the benefit of that property increase, we want to be released to them. And we think that with what the commissioners did, particularly that on that owner occupied in the homestead, that achieved that goal. So we have some plans and how we're going to weather that. But yeah, ultimately we have $420,000 less this coming year. And assuming the commissioners keep renewing that piggyback each year, that would be an impact on us.
So Margaret with the double rollback, we estimate about $190,000 less. And Margaret's very blessed to have a supportive community. We had an operating levy renewed last November, and then emergency levy renewed this November. So we just passed two renewal levies, which is no new taxes and keeps you where you are. Margaret did just recently get to the 20 mil floor. 20 mil floor allowed us for growth with reappraisal. My board, my district is very sensitive to the fact of what we saw in inflationary costs the last 3 years, because we have a building cost that went from $49.1 million to $67.3 million. And so operating costs, those same inflationary costs hit our taxpayers, hit the people in the room, hit everybody. So you have to deal with that. We are sensitive to our fixed income senior citizens and want to make sure that they have breaks. We are supportive of capping the increase so there isn't a big jump like we just had, and make sure that there's some growth. But if anybody knows about school funding, House Bill 920, I think it's been intact since the mid-70s. And what happens is when you pass a levy, that amount that levy generates stays the same. So Margaret last passed new operating money in 2010. So the question I asked people was, could you run your budget based on money that you got in 2010 and on that budget? So that's what schools struggle with. And the struggle is always this. It's like, don't be a superintendent, whatever you do, because you got to ask people to help support the school and pay taxes. You know, it's tough. But when you pass that levy, you get this amount of money, and this is your expense line, and it's on an inflationary growth increase. And when those two start crossing, then you got to go back and ask your community for 1 month. And it's hard. And it's difficult. And you got to be sensitive to what your taxpayers are paying. We are. I'm a taxpayer in my district, born and raised in my district. So we're very sensitive. We are very blessed to have a very supportive community. And but you know, when the rollback, we're estimating just about $200,000.
So for the audience, can I see a show of hands if you live in the Sandusky City School District, just so we know who the audience is? And for those who live in the Huron City School District, how many? And for those of you who live in Margaretta, Vermillion, Vineland. Okay, so we have good rules. Perkins. Okay, so we've got
Good
good
business.
business.
So I've got a question to.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to add to, I appreciate what Dad mentioned. Sandusky City Schools, we have not been on the ballot for new operating dollars since, I believe, 2012. It's been again, we want to respect our taxpayers, senior citizens, our families. We also want to make it livable. in our city. We want to increase home ownership, etc. And we've committed to that. Thank you to our board. We have a board member here, actually. So I'm very pleased that our board is committed to that. We want to continue doing that, but as Ed said, inflation continues. It's the school district just as it does our own personal pocketbook. Electricity, the basic needs, and really within our budget becomes more and more of a challenge. And as the state again asks us locally to take up of the responsibility of funding our local schools, it becomes a challenge. So, and we have a question here.
Susie Weinberger. Our taxes go into Huron County because we live in Huron County, but our school system's Monroeville. And I know you can't face those questions, but is LifeWise being funded by our schools' taxes? This seems to be something I can't get answers for.
No, LifeWise is a separate program that basically the way Margaret operates is if you have specials in the elementary, like computer class, parent can choose to allow them to go over there once a week is how we handle it. Then at the high school, they go over 2 times a week. They're funded on their own. There's no funding from the school going to them. We don't transport. They provide their own transportation and they do all of their own operations. No money comes out of Margaret schools for their program.
Question here.
And actually, let me ask.
Okay.
Could you re-explain briefly the piggyback?
Basically, the way it works is if you currently qualify, the loan is going to look to see if you own the property. No, and I'll take again another one where I think the legislature needs to be involved. There was a problem with the original language, and they fixed it. I mean, it was like right now, and they took care before it went to the governor. It was fixed, and it was done. So instead of having the fans amended, it was already. Yep, right here.
First statement on this place. Statement is, I don't know, signs around the space. Instance, we're not doing property. The only state in the time is consequences in one place. Then what actually says that in 1997, the Iowa Supreme Court stated our way in its school district was constitutional and the reading for the purpose. The Supreme Court finally gave up to what's currently it's considered constitutional, yet it's not functioning right. 10 years ago, basically the 60%. Which means that the state is backing it because of 10 states we're paying longest 10 states. So I put it as how we're going to continue this if we cut income taxes on top.
Okay, that was a very concise rendition of our history, and it all goes to you again, State Representative Swearingen.
I'm legitimately out. Anderson, Anderson went. Schools. That's resulted in about $1 billion increase to schools. Just around there. Building on that last installment of that funding is extremely so. I think assembly this is fine. Let's give this rent is that you kids are it cannot raise they can really follow but the American dream. So with that in mind, I'm sure that these guys over there have to resort to day games, well not the system when you meantime. And that's a living.
Can I ask a question to follow up on that? So, given what he's asked, what do we need to know as members of the audience so that we are successful?
Be a very fruitful operator state because it's going to have to address this issue. How to become that survives again. Something. It's not a financial thing. I think baseball, unfortunately, most of them 600 for terrible. They from France State. So if we can find, I think that's a business person. We can find 600 owners per sports franchise that has won Super Bowl.
I take the gentleman's question. One is that we as a state have thousands and thousands of tax. Counterfeit system. You know, this has been identified. This is not one person something looking into something. So it's been identified. That's the number two. We've seen this. And so why is state share is going down? If you're on the tax base, you may not need as much state aid as a district that doesn't have. It's not just exciting. But we have to look at what. But that's really the part of it. What does it take to educate our kids at home?
Sir, that's football. because symbols on the tax. This is, I think, part of the legislation, which I think I just want to learn. And I'll get this up.
What do you do from the candidates who out? So it's experience 3 years. How really don't know it. But it is the and those students are not part of the beliefs that to me, I think one of the things that does I didn't say before, is to me, it's targeted. It's what legislation has done is they've targeted individuals. Number one, you want people to say that. That and said that you want people that live in there to benefit. You want people that are so we need to take care of that. Take care of our seniors. That's one of the things that this legislation do. Is it hard? I think we're in. It's always going to shift us.
No, I'm going to go here.
So what does it cost us? I mean, generally speaking, as a lay audience, what is it that we need to understand about education so that we can appreciate your need for the cost to tax that staff real estate owners need to tax? Because we too are right, educated, motivated students. So what does it cost for our public schools to educate students?
That's a great question. You ever feel this job has built a frustrating for experience? Oh, it's going to be as good as it's done. Disadvantage bank. Younger than the town, but see, this would be great. The leadership, those children are coming to the state. That's the cost.
So how many of those are just so that I have an appreciation for him? So if we got people from other countries into the public school system, is it one than 10?
I could tell you that are the benefit. And then other students are ultra sensitive.
So what does that mean? Like who are they? Who is the cost? They are they coming from another?
So then, before we get each of them back, we have actually makes that money. So getting these years, that's against the best of the cost to educate the child to see professional.
And I guess if I'm not speaking, I'm not representing your thoughts, please correct me.
But in order for us as retired individuals to balance how we afford being in our home by asserting our taxes, while at the same time wanting to see that schools successfully educate their students, it would be helpful to know the proportions. Like, so what are the proportions of the emotionally challenged, physically challenged students, and how much money does it cost that school system to successfully educate? But if you just pull it up in one number, maybe we can't appreciate the cost of public education. And I'm just thinking, if you want us as money to understand that, that would be helpful. Just
So it counts. It's written child. Services team, which is that team system. Educators and outside psychologists, doctors. We don't have a direct say. There's an open school, it's back school. Give me a sense so it's what to discuss two things. Here, logically, research. We start on almost 350 a year. We provide in Sandusky, we provide meals for the city of Sandusky students. We provide meals. There's a purpose. We provide meals at least summer. It's kind of like something what we can do not only can have schools sell, yeah, our outreach to the city of Sandusky to the community is much greater. I don't expect our job of that. That's the reach that we need to have the impact as a Sandusky city schools to that concept. Yes, we can back to the provide services and other aspects. We don't send education. We're serving our seniors. So again, Sandusky City Studios so much greater today than being already did. So the place to get on, and I would give arbitrary it would be less than half. And to all of this,
Breaking it down to the level, how much of the school funding goes just to feed the children? That would be eye-opening for some like us who are not in the
It's like each one. So like that's the variance that we base and one thing is simply during 7 days on days. You don't feel well that's you're not schooling. Be educated. I think the frame educating you are so good for you. You are. So educating people things kids with disabilities. As far as making you get people productive. So
Yes.
it's every school in the county is
double.
it's really hot. Also,
they're quite talking about it, special education is very expensive, very expensive. And education. So kind of I don't someone to talk about games in the smaller entities. And what smaller entity that on his own portion of this that time. I look for this reduction. It's I raised it just at
It's just the taxpayers who are paying that jurisdiction. So if you live right here and you want to put a levy on and pay somebody else, you can use that by that's all. Then it is stuff on taxpayers paying over that levy. So just
Thank you. Right here.
someone. It's not sure for those who's trying to update that. Yeah, right. Why can't just do it? I don't understand. If just do it. You get to your
sad, and I'm sure it's, but okay, from my perspective, it goes back to BJ's question. To what services do you want in Huntington? So you can the volume festivals. Maybe it's a little more nice, but I'm willing to go to a 17% sales tax. Give Columbus essentially all the ability to control like costs, how the funding. That's the decision going to make, not the decision made by policy. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's all about cases, right? It's all about cases.
My name is Chris Gassner. And I apologize to Mr. Mason. And attempted explanation on that it does. Because every child is different. You had children. You know that every child can't play that you had. And that's it. I had one with on a 9 vote. Functionally very brilliant. They separate. You have to base it with that education. And the birth loss. That's easy. And I was into talking about when I was I'm also retired, so I feel his pace. And I went around last week. I still, it's not easy. It's I understand it. But I have a problem. If residents of the school district pass a letter because the leadership said that they need top to the up that amount of money without being part of that school. Then response.
I maybe answer this question, but I'm going to leave it up. In my mind, Chris, I think that what you have is a situation when you put a levy on the ballot, it's an estimated number. If the revenue is estimated, the expenditures that are going against that levy are estimated. It's the job of the budget commission to make sure that what you intended that money to be used for is in fact the way it's being used. And give an example. If we were talking before about the Lane School, this school doesn't have a permanent student levy. Most of that doesn't mean a thing. However, general fund money sold for all the building fixtures. Anything they have to do, it's got over $4 billion worth of stuff that they need to take care of. Them will last for 30 years. So they're passing money in a general part of account that looks like they've got way too much money. So we, as a budget committee, are asking us why we have to see for eyes and ears on to make sure is to determine is there an
Sam,
Jonathan. One thing is develop. We have to find something. It's calculated using proper based on state is not house. It's going to be given for what it is. Send it.
okay.
That and economic true this comes out the things you never, and that's a reality that they're a lot of times maybe right. So that's how that makes sense. Like I said, the last install. Being joint sign issue in the state. I guess mentally after the outbreak. It says no delay, increase property taxes. I don't have to say and what they're saying is this United Gears doesn't want to manually put tax or I don't understand that sense. That's a very emotion in the deal after the last 2 years. So noting that the people under the state have
That's a good. It's a lot. Trust me. How can you take my away as a education? That's my zone. I told you. Voters, tax students, life. 5 to 10 years show. It was years. I got you what I don't see how you can take a vote at lefty and just step for 7 voters pass it. And no, you and the council side. Maybe 3 is a chance. It's up to 3. Totally knowable. I don't believe that as American. And Gary County is choosing to do this. You do not have to do this. Let's see why you deal to find those were.
It's not enough. Right, so every time the school say to but we are estimating that's why that's the system the state is created that the it's not a problem with what doesn't any like $30. It doesn't mean to say you can't waste. That's not our whole term about it. Right? This is bad. This is bad. Our job is to admit what they are us and say,
Mr. Burke, this is a 10-year levy. After a 10-year, I know. So it's been 20 years and it's life regaining it back into restaurant interest or what has inflation had put there.
just recall that we're each year. Yes, like a video or something. All we're saying how it is to utilize those situation persons. And there has to, in my opinion, there has to be a check. Like there has to be a check in my business. It's like you put millions and millions of dollars and sit there and beat up. You know, to pay the house payment in a afford it. It's kind of a lose their but in my opinion, in general, someone's it has to be check.
I'd rather delete this. Okay. All right. So let me, for the school superintendents, do you care to?
EJ Square to the 9 of course. $10 back to our history. The place our welding went out to make it 21st century to create its daily on 21st century to the science lab. So I appreciate doing that. Getting not a shot at any of it. Is have close to $4 billion. I don't know what that says to the big picture, but checks and balances. Not my role. My role is just keep city schools. Election gets us just like our budget is people. And services. And remain competitive. That's to make things up wages. Because like Dickens, the higher label
with our support staff teachers. That brings back dollars to me. So again, we what it costs to raise a child, plus educate a child. Say what it costs to run a school district 5 years from now as we get taxes as the services needs to be support children. I continues to favor based benefits needs equipment. So and then our monthly payment was up for that question. So our carryover on the service need that looks pretty good. So we're not even there. It's Dusty running it. That's the bottom line. Service and yes, that is there no time as it's like the school funding that has the period goes up after the next 3 to 5 years. Traditionally goes down. Small material fees down. We can operate and live off on a bank. Not a business to the service piece of rent.
So, can I just add? I can say so. No school has seen a reduction in budget period. Again, there's not any sort of carryover that the school has that we're looking at. Saying, like, you mentioned the state line of some $3 billion out of $35 billion budget. What's the talking about entities? 150, and the rest of the definitely that conversation. So, what do you count these? Do you count? And you have to spend one super understanding that the very rare instance where there's a title money, it's not for the schools, but a title and anything, and no. When we get there, county, we bring in township, 1986. Here's the reason we set up my, I took my clubs.
I'm not an attorney, but it's not ready to get it. You have the listener question or cover as long as you're alive. But yes, it's not with them. Crazy is it? What's better? That's general. That's the
And Representative Swearingen is an attorney, and he was shaking his head yes.
yeah, it's a great question. And it's why it's some yes.
If you give an answer with regard to the Airbnbs, so like when would they be taxed different?
One, yeah, the seniors in the room who serious. That's what they out. Sure. institutional investment on residential homes by the dozens and thousands. I don't think the institutional investors are doing it. So I think that's another issue where if we as a general assembly take a look at that and say, are we really going to prioritize homes? Let's say, and just so, it's interesting, except these institutional investors. No, thanks. So, yeah, in terms of policy preferences, this general assembly, we want to help out the life. But it's that that's what
So for when the new legislation passed, it allows counties to determine the value of real estate. And if that value of real estate drops, how does that affect?
levy that outside the term. Well, the benefit is they readjust it upward until it hits the upper limit that you originally had. So if you got it, I use an example. I wanted that as just a friend, but it's Perkins Township finance person at the time. He was putting on a fire levy and it was 2.5 mils. And she said, we're going to get 2.5 mils, right? I said, no, you're getting something less than that. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, it passes in December, November. So what happens is in December, we adjust those rates based on what instead you needed. So if that's 2.5 mils, supposed to charge $5 million. Then if the valuation goes up and it creates more of a single revenue thing than what you do, then no, the state's going to adjust that downward. So what happens is you'll see downward trend, those cities and school districts that are at the point for everybody is adjusted down. And then as the values goes down, they come back up to that 2.5 threshold. So it may be like 2 mils.
Someone at Karen. All right, we have a question here.
That's years. I don't want their tax. So that's what happens. Said goes the opposite direction. It'll be up.
We have a question here. Close, hold it close.
Strong idea. And you get really smart stuff. And I thought you also had things that have to come together. And again, it's going to be difficult, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. Try it. Thanks.
Yes.
I would just want to yeah, for a lot of you, your major straight attention was things. It does the residents we see this is to say, how do we do that? How do we take that? How do we provide the same look at here? We studied it, put out a series of recommendations. But every government on it, they use the birth. And that's counting, that's how much is. And also, on the design, you get 10% of the business jump on the 50% say that that's on now. People make so I think that it's that innovation is such a
Bisogna passare quello se stiamo sending mistake to do this scratch paper. So Kyle Sutherland is like basically the stick takes so the school would be it's apply.
You're next.
It's kind of school.
Okay, Matt has a question. Hi, thank you. This is for you, Representative. Please, you said there's no laws on the books right now for Airbnbs limiting them or any of that sort of, is that correct? I would encourage the House to look at that because you were talking about homeownership. And certainly, I think that's against these large corporations and also individuals buying up these houses prevents young families from being able to afford homes. These companies make a lot of money just renting these houses, and we see them on TV advertising all the that's why I want to enter the superintendents. The voucher issue, somebody mentioned it, I don't know how deep it is and how much it has the rate grown each year. People taking vouchers and the amount of money that might go on.
So it's not straight voucher, but if you look at the state of Ohio school age children, 87 to 89% of the school age attend the school. So we still have the majority of kids. However, kids that want to go to vouchers, parochial school, private school, they take the public money and to those other schools. My issue is many superintendents' issue is we're tested. Our kids have to take tests, regulated, we'll check checks and balances on what we do with curriculum, what we do with kids. Those same checks and balances doesn't go with that money. So they don't get the same testing and the same checks and balances. That's a big
Yeah, and I would add, just the first starting to find out. I'm going to pull out this now. Let's do something about it. It's also sort of looking to fully. So now that we're obviously quickly, and so it's not cool. I can't. I want to go back to school. Sure, I don't want. They now they told you to provide some food. They now
just redirect. And then the legislature can say, hey, what would this state is solid? You're funding it, but you're short. So that you're not. The experts taking this book, 6 minutes, on the state budget, doing the work on attorneys again. You correct me on that, but I thought I just read that. So that's an example, and as Dr. Jackson was mentioning, it's now wealthy. Now it is a much higher percent of the poverty level families. The families don't need it. And something else that we need to recognize, and this is a good thing from educators' standpoint, that there's something also called CCP. Children will take public classes. This is the end of CLA. You said the state budget. So, well, again, it's a very
So you're saying identify those students.
Sandusky, we had 11 juniors and seniors last year, and but we had 11 juniors and seniors end up with an associate's degree. No cost to the field and cost to the district because we have for them. That's another source of expense.
You were definitely tooting your own horn there.
Yes. How did this all? Who's that? Can you make it free? That
was something, yeah. So that's the end of the story. But Billy's and then the success of that came down to instruction. So, yeah, and then it just continued to expand it out. And there, well, lots of that are expansion. So yeah, it started with what theory was a good attempt. Stupid.
I've got a question here.
Okay, we haven't mentioned Samson previous half. And the question is, about 10 years ago, the price of business added to $8 billion. It seemed to me that tax abatements. Now, it seemed to me that if we don't want tax abatements, we would be having a rate applying on the stupid and helping out on the tax systems. Can't say that's on the cheap.
Thank you.
So not just job creation, it's good day, it's jobs that my perspective, get back to my comment about I'm going to see safe grad to do a good job. So, and we're going to be incentivizing things that makes sense. But if we're not going to be creating good jobs that They just may have some salaries. I don't know that that's something illegal. That makes sense. So crazy at the end of the day, it's local. The state, I mean, the state is not, they did not should or shouldn't, aside from drafting them. But the local is ultimately making those calls as to whether they're going to do state. I would say, from the state's perspective, 10 of those programs, the 6 to send it was a good job. Whether those are jobs being restored to our country or no stuff operations, either one. Someone came to me and said, "We're sure overseas to Sandusky or so perhaps the jobs you have as wages. Let's do it." You know.
I think it's really one of the biggest upstanding podcasts that I've things I've done. It's really good goes in taxes and single as representatives here in some job creations. I think it's about the impact of the TIF on communities. Advice here, you don't pass it's statement, you will not get a company for the so it's not a matter of your standard figures and it's $18 billion. You're assuming that development will take place. Okay, we got a very prominent example. I'll bring up the data center. That was a factor. That company, in my opinion, was very likely regards. We give them over $100 million off of property taxes over the next 30 years. We gave them $25 million single standard just income tax returns for 18 employees. 18 employees. If you just all businesses in Perkinstown, just it would add up to about $5 million. The value of the data center, just the improvements they've done, that's $100 You just almost half the value of Perkinstown. And that could have built a school. That could have built a that could have paid for so much of what programs at once in one position. And so I think the state has to take a look at how do we ensure these things don't go green something like that.
So I'm glad to leave here with what is it that a resident of Erie County ought to know to do going to be a catalyst for change. So when I heard you say that, Caleb, what that said to me was, I need to pick up a pen and paper or an email or a telephone, and I need our legislators to represent my position on that issue. I need to speak up. But if I don't speak up, where does that leave you, Representative Swearingen, if we just stay quiet after we leave?
I wish, like Rick said earlier, I wish he changes, but because of your seeing fast, embrace the ways. We have a list of legislation that is, I need to hear comments apart. Thanks, listen. Serving senior, saying I said I'm part of civil, saying to us, so I wouldn't say I need you to those. You what to do like this. I'm always open to phone call and mail, even if we disagree, because within everyone, we may agree on the out.
Well, I think one point that we missed with regard to older adults being able to reading in their home as a retired person and being able to fund schools, it's the growing population, especially in Erie County, growing population. Well, it's going to be remaining. It appears as though the salary is using finishing of younger. So that means there's going to be fewer people in public schools and a growing number of older adults living on a retired inn. Also, as I think about that, I think, this is just the high school. The whole dynamic of how older adults are going to remain housed and how public schools are going to remain funded is we're about taking run of them. I don't
You look at the traditional cities when you used to have. And I say that just in traditional cities of so
22.
you can look at tagging your in that, but they are 84 track. There's no better. Just better idea. Good opportunities. So, that's a serious concern, both, following us and then time to say.
Any last questions? You've been an incredible audience.
We'd like to use this time. For anybody who thinks it's a waste of time to talk to individuals who are in positions that represent you in government, I would say you're wrong. And I tell you that because, again, all of you have been always so available and so willing to educate and discuss the tough issues whenever our agency is asked for informed, and other agencies can ask their forums too. It doesn't have to be so there. So, and I share that with you because if we really want to be candidates for change, instead of whatever organizations you may belong to, you need to have that organization raise these issues too, because the squeaky wheel gets the squeaky wheel. Get to know those who represent you, what that is done. For those who can represent you in county, state, or government. It's not a waste of time. So if you think you can't play city ball, I would have to tell you that our experience just in the last 12 months. So I really hope it does inspire you to get more civically engaged as to know.
Very good. 2 minutes. Last call. All right. Can you introduce yourself? Sandusky School Board.
So I just want to make sure that all of you that will speak for yourself as seniors can come out to your schools and learn what's going on, because we work really hard to educate all your children everywhere in this county, and they need the money that they're receiving. Come out to see.
Thank you. Well, you've been a wonderful audience. Sue, thank you so much for putting this together, serving our seniors.
Business by video and just sort of channel. You are.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Hey, call me. Call me. We'll talk off the record. I'm serious. Hey, June. How are you?